Welcome. My name is Earl Amin, and you're listening to the 2020 Foresight podcast, where CEOs, presidents, and leaders of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because leadership knows how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, Earl, thanks for having me on. My name is Greg Jacobs, and I'm the president of Campsite Media House. We're a content and media distribution company based in Southern California.
Outstanding. Well, tell me, what's the best thing about being the president of a media company?
My whole career, I've been in the television or media business. My family owned one starting back in 1970. So I grew up in the business, and then I went on to work at NASCAR and lead a TV division for them, and then went on to work for Red Bull, where I ran a media division for them. So it's kind of in my blood. It's all I've ever known and done. So being able to run our own shop, our own company is rewarding. At 51 years old, I'm able to put all those learnings over the past 30 years, time together, and do it for our own group. And it's nice to have that autonomy and that ability to make decisions and not go through a political structure of internal mechanics to do it, to get it done and do it the way we want.
Outstanding. That is a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, I hear from other leaders, and I'm sure you have as well, that leading a team and being able to see the road ahead can be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
I think, well, you have to look at the demographic breakdown of different generations and how leaders lead those generations. If you look at where we are, I'm mid-X gen. And so there's a different leadership quality that I have to have, or I have to be empathetic in a way of different generations. And so trying to get them to see the vision that we have and the vision of where we want to go is somewhat challenging. However, I will say this, with the pandemic, it has caused everybody to rethink and retool what they're looking at. So I have several younger team members on the team, and they like the idea that we all basically sail the ship together, that we're all doing it, that they have a voice, that they have a say, that they're not just a number, the number within HR. And so I think that literally the pandemic has shifted that entrepreneurial spirit. And the more I can make them feel like intrapreneurial, so entrepreneurs within the company, is what I do most. So I listen to them, I give them those thoughts. I do not lead from top down. I'm very inclusive as to what we're doing. I don't have all the answers, and especially with how things are moving so quickly, each generation has its own uniqueness. And if we can blend the X gen and the Z gen and the millennial generations together and pull the best of, we're in, I think, a better position. And I think we're more of an open-minded, cross-generational look than might have existed before.
Now, that was packed with a lot of wisdom, some key pieces in there. What particular piece of insight do you want to take out of that and share with and for the benefit of other leaders, CEOs, presidents?
I think it's the entrepreneurial or the entrepreneur with inside. You see, my wife's a teacher, and she'll say that a lot of her students want to own their own company, or I'm going to be a YouTuber, or I'm going to have my own firm, or I'm going to do whatever. And that's achievable to some, but not achievable to all. So if there was so the more I can empower those on the team to have a thought or to reach out and to try something. And if we make a mistake, fine, we can do it in a corralled way. I'm a big believer. You got to go out, you got to try something, you got to fail at it, and then you got to build back up. And a lot of larger companies don't have the patience, the ability, or the flexibility to allow a little bit of a pioneering spirit, And I think when a lot of that comes from when I was at Red Bull, the whole theme of that was giving wings to people and ideas. And I've taken that from where we were at Red Bull and said, okay, wings to people and ideas. What's your idea? What do you want to try to do? What do you want to try to accomplish? Because if there's 1 or 2 good ideas out of 10, that can really move the needle. And I want to embrace that. So we have a team meeting every single Monday morning at 9:30 to kick off the week. We then have a team meeting every Friday afternoon to close out the week. And I want to say, what do we want to do for this week? What do we want to try to target? And then at the end of the week, I always look back and say, what did we accomplish? Did we move the needle a little bit further this week than we did last? What are our thoughts on our performance? And that's kind of how we look at it.
Outstanding. Well, in your rise to your current position, what other successful leaders, CEOs like yourself, would you like to give a shout out to and should be on my podcast?
That's a great one. There's a gentleman named Jay Abraham, and Jay Abraham ran what was called at that point NASCAR Media Group, and he negotiated all the rights across all the different platforms for all NASCAR racing. And Jay was a classically trained business executive. He came up through the ranks of IBM, and so he was just absolutely white collar trained to do this. And then he moved into the media part of the world, or the media side of the business, and he brought so many of those classic learnings. So he was probably the biggest mentor I had in my career, so I of course can send him a note. But Jay Abraham is probably the one that told me or taught me a lot. I think the one phrase that came to me this morning that he says, "It's a marathon, not a sprint." And I know it's so simple in that approach, but just keep showing up, show up every day, do a little more. And that's why my Friday afternoon meetings, where I look back and say, what did we move forward from where we were on Monday? And just a little bit moving forward, one step in front of the other is where we're going to be. So that was the marathon instead of a sprint.
Now, for the final question, how do you celebrate a win?
That's a great question. It's concerning two things. A win is for us is securing a client. If we secure a client, there's an old phrase, at the moment you sign the client, you start to lose the client. So I'm always cautious about celebrating wins because now the work has really begun. But what I do is I, of course, let the team know, guys, we won one, celebrate it, enjoy it, take the weekend and do a little pat on the back, be proud of where we are, because now the work really begins, because it's hard to sell a client. It's even harder to keep a client. Yeah. But I don't shy away from a celebration or feeling good about it, but also know that we can't rest on our laurels. Once that blue ink is on the contract, we have to keep pushing.
Yeah. Truth.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on. Tell us, how can people find you?
Probably my LinkedIn is the best. I'm Gregory Scott Jacobs at LinkedIn, or the LinkedIn is Gregory Scott Jacobs. Or you can send me an email at gjacobs@campsitemh.com.
Outstanding. This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Greg, thank you so very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Earl. Take care.
From one dynamic CEO to another, from one impactful company to another, up next is an equally great leader worthy to be listened to. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Earl. I'm Samantha Skey. I'm CEO of She Media, and I run a company that facilitates content for about 2,000 independent content creators. We produce lifestyle content and publish it for over 80 million people globally. And that's my job.
Well, and what a job that is. And I'm so glad you're doing it. So let me ask you, what's the best thing about being the CEO of this particular company?
I'd say the best thing about being a CEO in general might be the best and worst, which is I think you're accountable without excuse to every aspect of the business. That's, depending on the day, that can be a great thing or a difficult thing, always difficult, sometimes good news, sometimes not. The best thing about being CEO, specifically at She Media, is that I get to work on a business model that engages both purpose and profit. So we're, in that realm of sort of triple bottom line, in that we focus on delivering outcomes on a mission while simultaneously driving outcomes for our profit and our business growth, and hopefully driving value to the people we serve. So those are the things that we endeavor to quantify our success against.
Wow, Very good. Very detailed. I like that. So in your journey, I've heard from leaders, you've heard from leaders that say that, leading a team can be challenging, especially when it comes to seeing the road ahead. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've been in digital media and technology for 25 years, and we move quickly. It's an industry that is perpetually advancing. Advancing or regressing. I think that is going to be a reality for this industry for as long as I will participate in it. I try to look at a combination of economic markers in the global marketplace, while also looking at consumer behavior and the direction that we're going in culturally. So with media, really looking at how people consume content, how they share content. Social media is really just an extrapolation of other ways in which we share and are influenced and influence others, but with a different set of tools. So it's rough, but I listen to smart people all the time, try to engage in active listening, find people who can debate me and challenge, my theories on where we're going. And I think just surround myself with people who are real experts and use them, engage them, help them, validate their own ideas and challenge mine.
Outstanding. Well, that's a very holistic point of view, perspective, and perception that you have. What key significant piece of insight do you want to share with others in your position and for their benefit? What key piece of insight would you hone that down to?
I really feel like I'm still learning, and you and I discussed this briefly, but I think being open to changing your mind and being persuaded. I used to perhaps be too persuadable. Then in reaction to that became quite rigid and felt like I had to really stick with a point of view, even against data that might challenge that point of view. I think enabling yourself to be persuaded by people whom you respect, selecting the people whom you are going to trust in your business environment really carefully. There's all different kinds of feedback, and it's not all created equally in terms of the value it conveys. So I really try to stratify, frankly, in an organic way, but also in a pretty deliberate way. I stratify the feedback I'm receiving so that I can figure out how to filter it and how to listen and learn, but also know when to block.
Well said. So what other successful CEO leaders have you encountered that you'd like to acknowledge or give a shout out to and should be on my podcast?
Oh, well, absolutely. One of my admittedly closest friends and greatest kind of mentors or collaborators is a woman named Courtney Nichols Gould, who has up until she sold her company in November, Smarty Pants, a vitamin company she sold to Unilever for a really, really positive outcome, both for the company and for herself and her co-founder, who's her husband, Gordon Gould. Courtney is an inspiration and also a wonderful challenger. And we worked together early in our careers and learned how to support always sort of unabashedly while also challenging each other. So I'd say Courtney Nichols Gould, you should absolutely interview as a founder and a CEO.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. We will honor it. So now for the final question. How do you celebrate a win?
Oh, such a great question, because the harder I am on myself and inadvertently perhaps on my team, the less I remember to celebrate the wins. I think recognition is critical. So, and recognition not just to the most obvious participants in the success or in the win, but to everybody who made an assist, everybody who did. I tend to go into sports metaphors or analogies, but everyone who defended the goal, everybody who cheered from the sidelines. There's so many people involved in a success often. And I think whether you're contemplating the right thing to do or the strategic thing to do, it's both point to really specific confirmation, reaffirmation, and recognition of the players in the success. And not just saying, congrats, great job, but saying, I love how you did this. Yes. So those specifics are really, I think, what's most important, and going deep with all of those team members is really important and something I enjoy. It's as fun as, champagne or other more obvious ways of celebrating.
Indeed. It's been such a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you.
How can people find you?
Oh, I'm really easy to find. My last name's unusual, Skey, and I guess my social handle is SSKEY7, and my email, if anyone wants to collaborate, I guess, is sskey@shemedia.com.
Outstanding. This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Earl.
Thank you for listening to the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs share who they are and what they do in the world that makes a difference. For more entrepreneurial and life-changing insights, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes accounts. All of the links are available below. See you in the next episode.